and welcome to another episode of Bagged and Board. I am Vlad St. Valentine, and with me I got a couple of special guests. I have Mr. Ben Napier, the creator of BG Comics.
Yep.
And also next week we have the creator of the book we're discussing today, Gl'urk Bo, Taylor King. How's it going, brother?
Hey, man. I'm good.
How was the drive?
I'm very, well, you know, it's driving up 35 is it 35?
Yeah, it's a miserable
That's
shit
the name
fest
of that
right
one.
there,
Yeah, 35 is a hell of a drug.
You know.
35 is a hell of a drug.
That's a good slogan.
Either way, too. Both are you.
That'll probably help me. I'll like be singing that 35 is kind of a drug.
Yeah.
All right. So today, guys, we're taking a little bit of divergence. We've done, some of the big DC runs lately, the Joker War, and of course, 3 Jokers, because Joker stuff's fun, and it's kind of the best stuff that's being written by DC right now. Pretty much anything Tynion and Snyder are doing has been great. But I'm diverging here because I'm gonna gush on Jeff Johns too for a second, because holy shit, that man can still write a good story. But we are doing something very special today. We are checking out a local comic from a first-time publisher.
Yep.
This is your first book out, man.
It is our first book.
And we got a chance to read it. I feel like I'm part of an exclusive club here because I got to read a little bit early, like all you all you Star Wars cocksuckers out there here. Suck that Disney teat and get to go to those fucking conventions and shit. Not jelly at all. Actually, I'm really not, man. The Gl'urk Bo comic, your first one, man. And is this your first attempt to write a comic?
It is my first real comic. And I'm not super well versed in comics. I mostly would get like Sandman and heavy metal and stuff at the library, and some DC stuff, and like just very entry level.
I wouldn't say heavy metal is necessarily entry level.
Well, maybe not, but it was my niche interest.
Yeah.
It was like I knew about Superman already. I'd seen the movies and stuff.
You don't necessarily have to read any Superman to understand what Superman is. Like Batman's the same way. The story just existing in America.
But I mean, I was more of a classic reader, so I read more of like Mark Twain and older stuff like that, and old sci-fi, Clark, Asimov, all the Foundation stuff, Hitchhiker's Guide, all of that stuff. So that was really more my thing. So this is my first comic book that is out now. That was definitely a big learning experience because I wanted to write. At first, I've done a lot of prose writing, like short stories. I've written songs. Everything that you write has like a different. It requires a different process, and this one was a big learning curve. But our artist was a huge teacher in that, and Ben just providing a lot of materials like on Blambot was one thing. Like they just had how to write a comic, and
fredvanlente.com had an awesome template that we used for script formatting.
And I looked up I think like especially I found an old Batman script, and that was just really helpful to see like an actual finished product. I mean, I just Googled, script, professional script, and wanted to actually see, because all the YouTube videos and stuff, it was kind of hard to get an idea of like, I understand that you're supposed to write about a character.
No, but a proper screenplay format is a tricky thing. Yeah.
And that's not even the same. Like a screenplay for TV is.
That's the only reference I got. I'm taking a screenplay writing I'm taking a screenplay writing class. I get that's difficult to do in an episode.
Right. And like you can understand like that's different from prose. Prose and screenplay, 2 very different things.
Exactly.
And screenplay and comic script, again, very different.
My first draft of this, Meet an Angel of Death, because it is now the first in 6 planned issues for the Gl'urk Bo series. My first draft was a lot like a screenplay. There was a lot of multiple movements in one panel and stuff like that. And the artist came back and was like, all right, we need to like rethink this. And we were very open of just being like, tell us what to do, because I had the basic idea of having a horror story happening in space on like some sort of long, deep space journey. And I knew that was like the basic idea. And Ben and I got together one day and he was talking about wanting to do a comic, and I was like, well, and he actually had like an old a whole backstory for some other idea that is actually being written right now to connect to this. But the idea was to use this as sort of a learning, uh, like a guinea pig of just like how to actually do it in the first place.
Mhm.
So, and it turned out, to go pretty well.
So this has definitely has been used as a learning process then.
Absolutely.
Hopefully going forward, things get a little bit smoother and things like that. So like what would you say has been, you producing, like what has been the biggest thing you have learned, something you come across in making this that you weren't expecting to come across? Like any difficulties or?
I mean, I wouldn't say there's anything that's happened like huge that's been unexpected. Really, it's just come down to the learning curve of really just like working with artists to make a script because from what we've gathered, right? I've worked with a few different artists at this point. Taylor's really only worked with Tom, and I've worked with a couple other artists doing commissions and sequentials and some other projects. And it's like you either get artists that want to draw your thing and can't really draw it on the level that you want it, or you get somebody that wants to draw your thing and really only wants to draw exactly what you write. You know what I mean? And then just like give me exactly what you want, and that's what I want. And then you get illustrators that can see what you want and can see what you really want beyond what you wrote, and really kind of
people who add something
Yeah.
to it themselves.
People who are qualified and interested in adding more to it.
You
know
can't.
what I mean?
It's like I used to say, you can't teach give a shit.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's
And-
very true. Yeah, and that totally applies.
So
And so, we lucked out. We really jumped the shark. Tom is an amazing artist, and more so than other artists I've worked with, he's just been really forward about, saying, okay, cool, I see what you did here, but how about we do it like this?
Yeah.
And his suggestions are always, golden. Like occasionally we, story wise, we want a certain detail,
So
a
Tom made other
little
comics before?
different, or yeah, he's done many comics before.
okay, so that definitely helps to have someone who's
Absolutely,
coming with the
yeah.
experience and going, this is kind of how it's done a little bit.
Right.
So I guess what I was really asking in that question is for people out there who may be watching this thinking, hey, I want to make my own, because I mean this is definitely the time to be a punk rock comic book maker, man, to DIY. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yes and no. The thing about it is, if you can draw, and if you can draw, or somebody that can do sequential art, because it's a lot more than just drawing figures. You know what I mean, and drawing things that look awesome.
Mhm.
Then right now is definitely the time to draw your own comic and make your own thing happen. If you don't draw, it gets pretty expensive pretty fast.
I'm just saying with ATT basically holding the sword of Damocles over fucking DC Comics' head at this point in time. Like, they might not be long for this world, the way things are kind of going.
I mean, only because their movies are blowing real hard.
Well, but I'm saying AT&T.
I would say DC Comics as a brand and the DC Comics characters are not going anywhere.
No, they're not, but they're going to be.
If anything, the comics themselves are going to get licensed out to other publishers that have their game tighter than the big two do right now.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But DC Comics is a publishing house.
And I would tell you that, like, this is, to me, that's the first I've heard of DC going the way of the dodo all the way like that. It's way more likely at Marvel, where they are a Disney property, and on a whole, and there are already many Disney comics going places other than Marvel.
Oh yeah, that's
so the likelihood that the Marvel comics department gets axed, you know what I mean?
Which I would love for fucking Image to pick up Spider-Man. Come on,
I bet it won't get axed all the way. What I bet will happen is everything that's not like, Hulk, Thor, Captain America, you know what I mean? Like everything that's not like MCU is going to go to other publishers for a little while and then die off.
So with that being said, again, with DC and Marvel cutting their stuff back, that's what I'm saying. Like, now's the time to be creative and put your shit out there if you can.
Scout is making big waves. You know what I mean? They just signed like a book distribution deal through Simon & Schuster. So they'll be in all the bookstores on their own Steam, all the Scout trades and stuff.
Nice.
Which is huge for them. And then, Vault and Dynamite, other little creator owned.
There was a new one we picked up that had like Archangel A. I think it's AMA or American.
Yeah.
Yeah.
AWA maybe.
Yeah, American.
They're the ones.
Artist,
They're the
whatever.
ones that do Grendel, Kentucky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they got some good stuff coming out too.
Yeah, Y2 Comics homeboy told me to pick up some of those, and that stuff looks pretty good.
It was on par with the some of the Joe Hill DC Black stuff that Stephen King's son was doing.
Sure,
I'd put it about on the same level as that.
nice.
So it was good. They're
Which one did you get?
Archangel 8. So I got to read the comic. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass because you're sitting here. Some of the things I do want to comment on specifically as far as the art goes, there's a lot of good panels in there. Some of the horror stuff was really, really good. The creeping in when you first see the shadow coming into the ship itself, those 3 panels of it coming from the ship into the ship were amazing.
Yeah.
I'm glad you dug that. That's like kind of ambiguous land. Like some people were like, "What's happening?"
Oh no, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Followed
That's
up
that's totally Tom like doing that, like
by
giving
adding
a
something
shit.
to it.
Yeah.
That's to the script.
Kicking it up a notch.
And yeah, I was going to say, I was going to ask if you design those panels out in mind when you're writing the script, or if that's just the artist filling in the gaps.
So definitely part of that learning curve was learning how to pace out panels, and Tom is definitely responsible for the pacing. I mean, on my first and second drafts, I probably had about 5 panels per page or so, maybe more, just depending on how much dialogue. The first one is very sparse in dialogue. So it wasn't, I mean, he definitely paced most of the book. There was pretty much a lot of description about what was supposed to happen, in the pages. And we had a lot of in-depth talks about that. And really the way I'd written it, there was quite a bit of description and just sort of like what is supposed to be happening. And then he was able to visually actually like express that. And I mean, like we're having talks about it right now. Just like, I think we just got really spoiled with Tom on this first one because he really did like go a crazy extra mile on like.
The art was really good. So something about, were the ads your idea or his?
I think that was both Ben and I just at like on
I mean, basically where that came from was I'm interested in pursuing editing like outside of creating my own books, right? Like I'm trying to put together a portfolio and hopefully get a job working for a small publisher eventually. If selling our own books doesn't, like make us a ton of money and, blow up like we wanted to, right? Mm-hmm. So I basically was, looking at it like I want to get used to the idea of paginating the book and having to worry about where ads are going to fall. And so I threw it out there kind of like, maybe we do some like in-universe like ad stuff. Like, would that be cool? And everybody kind of yes-anded that. And ran that into a situation that we use for kind of supplemental world building.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can kind of tell you more about it. Oh, like, nice. You dig it?
Well, no, I especially did because like there was something that I'm going to give you a little bit of criticism here. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
As I was looking through the dialogues, one of the first things that struck me is that expositional dialogue is often fucking clunky.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And like, I'm not trying to fucking like, I'm not a professional writer. Well, actually, I technically am a professional writer, I guess. I'm a technical writer.
Uh-huh.
Bunch of different things. But I know where to put my fucking comments and shit. So, your writing is really good and expositional dialogue can be very clunky. And so one of the things I noted was clever though, was we got that little bit of Gl'urk history in a very natural way in the birthday scene.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, too many hatchlings. I was like, it's a very clever way to give me some backstory about that guy without it feeling fucking clunky and unnatural. And then a little bit later, there was a line that was a little bit clunky. I was like, oh.
We dropped the clunk.
Yeah. It was like when he goes, I told you since I picked you up on that station.
Yeah.
It was like, because you give me that in the bio later on,
mm-hmm.
and it actually really wasn't even necessary to the story. That's just me being super fucking
Yeah.
picky. Because everything else in it was like just spot on as far.
Sure.
And then the ads, adding into it a little bit, adding into that backstory without exponential dialogue. I was like, all right, these guys are fucking giving me this universe a little bit at a time without bashing me on the head. It's like one of those like Now, remember what your father told you 10 years ago
Yeah.
when we sat down that one time.
I hate stuff like that. One of the things that stands out, what makes Star Wars A New Hope, because we were talking Star Wars, what makes A New Hope so good is the ambiguity of it.
Mhm.
It's like, where are we? Oh, it's in a galaxy a long time ago.
Yeah, and that's
What?
all. And that's
How
all
does the
they
ships
give you.
work?
Yeah,
We have
yeah.
hyperdrive. What? It is fantasy. That is and I think our story is maybe encroaching on fantasy a little bit. For myself, I pretty much, if it was done on the next generation, if it's gone that far, then I'm safe. In staying inside of science fiction,
Talking about technology.
Let's take about,
or just anything that's happening.
but take every sci-fi we love
Mm-hmm.
outside of Star Wars. Let's go to
because Star Wars doesn't count as sci-fi.
No, it's high fantasy and space.
Yeah.
Exactly. By most,
Let's just take the two most popular sci-fi serials, Doctor Who and Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
For almost all intents and purposes, those are fucking horror shows.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Almost at least 2/3 of the episodes could qualify as a horror show.
Mhm.
And then eventually in the end, you find out there's a scientific explanation behind the thing that seems supernatural or scary.
Mm-hmm.
And especially Doctor Who. Fucking
The
nine times out of 10
idea
is that shit.
of Q, the Q continuum is terrifying. There is this, out of control, like toddler, omnipotent race.
It's like the
that is
bullshit
just out
Zack
there
Snyder
doing-
tried to convince us about Superman. It's like, no, we were worried about the Q way before this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just bonkers.
'cause the Q
and that's
is-
the first episode of The Next Generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the Q is basically just that kid from that episode of The Twilight Zone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think
So
that's
that's
a
what
big
Graydon's
part of
for.
science fiction. Really, is sort of just being real, and sometimes reality is scary.
Horrific.
Yeah.
And the potentials of scientific, the potentials of the
I learned that early. So one of my
boundless
favorite
potentials of space are all in the universe are terrifying. Also, remember the hitchhikers, the
yeah
complete perspective machine. Where you are, and it just shows you where you are in the universe.
One of my favorite short paperbacks by Arthur C. Clarke is I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, the Earth is something's fucked up with the solar flares, and it's feeding back on itself, and it's going to go nova in 90 years. So we got to get off of the Earth. And so the whole story is Earth is gone, and we've seeded this planet out there. And so the story is just telling about this new race out there that learned about their past that is gone now. And I read that, maybe 13 or 14, and the existentialism of it was eye-opening and, useful in my own life. But that was just like a terrifying idea, and it was just expressed with such a seriousness, and not like joking about it, but it was just very matter of fact. Like, yeah, this is possible, and so let's extrapolate from there. And it's terrifying, but he knows what he's. I don't know. I just always have appreciated that kind of science fiction versus like there's a lot of stuff out there where, it's like, well, finally we have the ability to travel around the stars, and then there's bad guys we got to deal with. It's like, well, okay. I mean, we may as well just be writing about Superman.
I take it you were a Hyperion fan then.
Well, I guess.
Yeah, bad guys in space is just the same story in a new setting.
True.
Oh,
I see-
come
I
on,
see what
man.
you're saying.
Are you trying to tell me that the Princess of Mars is just Tarzan in space?
I mean,
Robinson
duh.
Crusoe on Mars.
I mean, it is and it isn't. You know what I mean? There's way
Same writer. I'm just
totally. I mean, it's
Yeah.
totally still Burroughs, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's still. I would argue there is a lot more dimension going on.
no. I
in the
love
Mars.
Princess of Mars.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm just taking cheap shots because they're funny.
I mean, he's
Don't
dead.
tear him apart.
He's
all
dead.
right?
You can take cheap shots of him all day.
He wouldn't mind.
Hey, while we're at it, we can make fun of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle being in fairies. I mean,
Yeah.
how can you write something? How can you write such good books and then be like, oh, these pictures of these fairies are real? Like, damn it.
Some would argue that they're not so good. You know, he gets the idea of inducing information and deducing information.
Yeah,
wrong.
I understand that his actual inductive reasoning isn't inductive, or I understand it's not deductive reasoning, it's inductive reasoning. I get that, but the stories are fun. The stories were fun. They're classics.
I'm a long-time Sherlock Holmes fan, so
it's like a dumber Alexander Dumas. You're just on an adventure having a good time.
Yeah. Well, Hound of Baskerville was one of my favorite stories. It was terrifying.
It's the first book I ever read.
Yeah.
First novel I ever read.
Really?
Yeah. It was like a way super abridged version that I read when I was
Sure.
5 or something.
I think Cujo was the first novel I ever read.
Ooh. First novel. Probably Tom Sawyer. Probably Tom Sawyer. That I really gave a shit about.
Okay.
Probably The Outsiders.
Nice.
Just look at you, Pony Boy. Thank you. A couple more things about the comic. As far as some of the story elements and things you added in there, the misnaming Fistful of Dollars, and then of course the demon showing up later, as the man with no name,
Yes.
kind of revenant, playing on their fears of the things that were in their subconscious, taking on those forms, because I guess it's feeding off psychic energy. I guess is what they alluded to towards the end. If I got that right.
It's a bit, well, I'm
sure there's more to it than
I'm
that.
hashing out
the
the pseudoscience of it, but
yeah, what exactly they're doing.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
they're basically it's about harvesting the energy.
Gotcha. There's sort of a psychological or a spiritual vampire sort of creature.
Okay, let me try and do this. They are a product.
You don't have to spoil too much, man. If you want to flesh
No.
this out,
I want to do this because I think this is important. Just because this is very. I was adamant about hard sci-fi. So at least in the point of like if they've done it in Star Trek. So the Dark Ones, our creature is it's an energetic being that is a product of like the interaction between protons and antiprotons like at the
The atomic level, or the
the
molecular.
yeah on the event horizon. There, and I guess you would call that Hawking radiation, but there's like some energy that's interaction there and that's lost from the black hole. And I'm taking that and using basically the energy has matrixed into these mind forms, and they harvest off of just energy. They're like insects. They're almost all instinct, and they happen to run into our two heroes because in this world, in this universe, the faster than light, well, they don't really have faster than light travel. Their space propulsion is you create a gravity field around the ship, and then just your run-of-the-mill nuclear fusion engine has more energy to move through, like basically the ratio to mass energy is
you don't have to explain
fixed. Anyhow, yeah, you get it. You know what I'm talking about.
No, but it's fun.
But the Dark Ones the creatures are attracted to the energy of the gravity field and to the energy of our brains.
Okay.
And that just builds and builds and follows the two heroes into the middle of the solar system, where, shit gets really bad. Yeah. All hell breaks loose.
Issue number 2, what happens when they get where they're going is
to one of the points. Yeah.
Our first stop along the way here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Total Recall reference. A little bit. That's what I got. Reference. That's what I got from that's the first thing I thought of when he has his Mars flashback with the eyes popping.
Yeah. I think that was something Ben.
We basically we acknowledged it and then we leaned into it. Tom was kind of like, okay, so do you want me to just do Total Recall? And it was like, well, yeah, because we can't not. Because if we don't, then people are gonna like, oh, it's kinda. So we just went for it.
No, yeah, totally, it works.
Yeah.
You already had. Look,
there's already a lot of referencey type stuff too.
Look, you jarred me in the first fucking bit by dropping shit really early. So I was like, oh, that's edgy to be edgy. Okay. But like when you get to the vibe of what's going on, because like even the weed smoke is like, okay, they're just trying to be edgy. Once you get to the vibe of the characters and what they really are about, it all fits better. You know what I'm saying? And
Gl'urk is very like innocent.
Once you get the little vibe of him, like I said, it all fits a little bit better. And the leaning into the pop culture references just add to the vibe. Again, the Fistful of Dollars and the the leaning into the Total Recall visuals. It's not a bad thing. Just, you try not to go Family Guy fucking obvious with it. You have them be few, far between, and relevant to what's going on, or relevant to what the characters' personalities are, which I think all these were. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I liked it, and I think it worked.
Things that can work
it.
visually as well.
Yeah.
So
they pushed back. I really wanted to in there, but we couldn't figure out how to letter that. So
Wow. That man in the hand reaching at the cryo when they cryo sleep, the black hand reaching towards you before they pull. Loved it. Loved the fucking slow build of that, man. That was a beautiful visual. So hats off to the artist. The fucking Gl'urk, what is his name? Gl'urk's head. Fucking just that was like, oh God.
Yeah,
where did that come from? We were smoking fucking rainbow weed 5 seconds ago, and now I'm fucking got a disembodied head of a fucking snork in my hands. What the fuck is going on? Like, that was jarring.
Seeing the world and then just ripping it open.
Yeah, that was again. So this thing does a lot of stuff very, very well, especially for a first attempt out. So kudos to you guys. I mean, I did my nitpicky shit. So obviously anything has places to grow. So don't think that my nitpicky shit is me fucking being an asshole about it. We're running a fucking review show. We got to do that shit. Otherwise I think I'm sure sucking you off.
I've heard
which comes afterwards.
I've had way bigger wrists, so you're good.
Man, I really appreciate you guys coming out here tonight.
Yeah, thank you
for having us.
Are we going to get a number 2 anytime soon, or when's that going to come?
Number 2 hits Kickstarter in February 1st. We go back to Kickstarter. We'll hit Kickstarter right after we finish shipping out all the stuff for Kickstarter number 1. But the inks
just about finished getting inks, and then I guess there's constant rewrites all the way through, pretty much up to lettering. So
dude, can't wait to get my copy. We'll put up a link in the description down there where you guys can get copies, because we got a place you can go and buy them, right?
They'll be in shops February 1st.
Groovy. And you got a link online for
until then, bgcomics.com.
Yeah,
bgcomics.com. We'll put the link down there. Anything else you want to plug, gentlemen?
Hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on Instagram at BG Comic Books on both. Follow our YouTube, BG Comics and Animation. You can check out our Infinity Soundcheck podcast, where we got musical guests and other creators, getting interviewed, and we're plugging our book, and we've got a bunch of video content, interviews with Tom, the illustrator, and Jimmy, the colorist. Check out our YouTube. Just help us grow. You can buy all the merch that was on the Kickstarter. You can buy on the online store, bgcomicbooks.com.
Awesome. Okay.
No, bgcomics.com. Just be ready for more scary stuff in space.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate y'all being here. Like, subscribe, check out their channel. They have a better channel than we do, so you'll actually enjoy it. And say hi to your mother for me.
Cheers.